This isn't really about how your legs look. It's about independence, being able to get up off the floor after playing with a grandchild, or catching your balance if you trip on an uneven curb, without a moment of panic. What makes this frustrating is that it usually creeps up slowly, so slowly that by the time it's noticeable, more strength has already been lost than most people realize. That's exactly why what ends up on your plate starts to matter more after 60 than it did at 30, even if the portions on that plate haven't changed much at all. So let's get straight to it, since this isn't the kind of video that needs to keep you waiting. The food that keeps showing up in research around leg strength and healthy aging is something most kitchens already have, or easily could: brown lentils. Before you picture a plain, slightly boring bowl of lentils, stay with me, because the reason they matter for your legs isn't only the one you're probably already thinking of. There's a second reason, one that has less to do with protein and a lot more to do with something most nutrition labels barely get a glance. It's easy to walk past lentils in the grocery store without a second thought, tucked between more popular items, but what's inside that small bag deserves a proper look, especially for anyone thinking seriously about their legs right now. The first reason is protein, and yes, that's the obvious one, but it behaves a little differently after 60 than it did in your 30s or 40s. Researchers who study aging and nutrition have found that older adults often need relatively more protein in a single meal to trigger the same muscle-building response that a younger body gets more easily from a smaller amount. This is sometimes referred to as anabolic resistance, and it basically means muscles become a little less responsive to small servings of protein, so steady, moderate protein spread through the day becomes more important, not less. A single cooked cup of brown lentils provides close to 18 grams of plant-based protein, a meaningful contribution toward that daily need, especially for anyone trying to rely a little less on red meat as they get older. This isn't about cutting meat out completely, it's simply about adding another reliable protein source into the rotation, so meals feel a little more varied without any single ingredient carrying the whole burden. Quick question, just to check in, when you think about protein, does chicken or eggs come to mind first? For most people watching this, probably yes. Lentils rarely make that mental list, and that's a big part of why they end up so overlooked, sitting quietly in the pantry while people reach for something else entirely. Now here's that second reason mentioned earlier, the one that isn't just about protein. Brown lentils are also rich in potassium and magnesium, two minerals the legs rely on to actually contract and relax properly. Think of potassium as part of the electrical signal that tells a leg muscle to fire when you stand up, and magnesium as what helps that same muscle relax again afterward, almost like a reset. Research on muscle function suggests that a diet lower in potassium relative to sodium may be linked to weaker muscle performance and more frequent cramping, especially later in life. Most everyday diets lean fairly heavy on sodium, from processed and packaged foods, and fairly light on potassium, so a food that quietly shifts that balance, without anyone having to think about it too hard, can matter more than most people expect. This doesn't mean reaching for a potassium supplement instead, since whole foods like lentils tend to deliver these minerals alongside fiber and protein in a way the body generally absorbs and uses well. That balance is easy to overlook, but your legs feel it every single day. And if that already feels like the whole picture, it isn't quite finished yet, because there are two more pieces working quietly in the background that almost nobody thinks to connect to their legs at all, and one of them has less to do with muscle contraction directly, and more to do with everyday wear and tear in the body. There's iron and folate to consider next, both of which lentils provide in useful amounts. Iron plays a central role in carrying oxygen to muscles, including the ones relied on for walking, climbing stairs, or simply standing at the kitchen counter for a few minutes at a time. When iron levels run a little low, which becomes somewhat more common with age, muscles can tire faster and recovery can feel slower, even if a walking routine or light strength exercises haven't changed at all. Folate works alongside iron to support healthy red blood cells, which carry that oxygen in the first place. This is particularly worth paying attention to for anyone who has noticed feeling unusually tired during activities that never used to feel demanding before. Sounds a bit technical, but here's the simple version. Together, they're less about building muscle directly, and more about making sure the muscle already there gets what it needs to keep performing day after day. There's also a quieter piece worth mentioning. One, researchers are still actively studying polyphenol, the natural plant compounds that give lentils part of their color. Some research into aging suggests that low-grade inflammation tends to increase in the body over the years, and that this ongoing inflammation may play a role in how quickly muscle is lost over time. Foods rich in polyphenol, lentils included, are being studied for a possible supporting role in managing that inflammation, though this is very much an evolving area of nutrition science, not a settled fact. Still, choosing colorful, minimally processed plant foods over heavily processed ones is a pattern nutrition researchers tend to agree on, even while the finer details are still being worked out. It's not a reason to expect dramatic results. Think of it less as a fix and more as one small factor working alongside everything else already mentioned, quietly stacking the odds a little more in your favor over time. The last piece is fiber, and this one tends to surprise people. Brown lentils digest slowly, which means they don't cause the same sharp rise and drop in blood sugar that some quicker digesting carbohydrates do. Steadier blood sugar through the day is generally associated with steadier energy, which matters when trying to stay consistent with light movement, or simply wanting to avoid the kind of afternoon slump that makes any activity feel unappealing. And no, this isn't about turning into a rabbit and eating lentils at every single meal of the day. If cooking them from scratch sounds like a hassle, this is usually where people quietly check out, assuming it takes too much time and effort. It really doesn't. Canned, pre-cooked lentils are available in most grocery stores, already rinsed and ready, and a couple of spoonfuls stirred into a soup, a salad, or even scrambled eggs takes well under 2 minutes. A basic bag of dried lentils is also inexpensive compared to most protein sources, which makes it a realistic option to keep on hand regularly, not just something reserved for special effort. So here's the point that's often missed in conversations like this one: it was never only about the protein. It's the combination, steady plant protein alongside that quiet mineral balance of potassium and magnesium, that supports muscles able to actually fire and recover the way they're supposed to. But there's something else worth being completely honest about here. Brown lentils alone won't rebuild leg strength, and no single food really can. That's true of lentils, and honestly, it's true of anything anyone tries to sell as a complete answer on its own. What research on healthy aging consistently points to is that food works best alongside simple, regular movement, things like standing up and sitting back down a few times in a row, or a short daily walk around the block. Pairing steady nutrition with even small amounts of movement appears to matter more than either one working on its own, and that combination, food and movement together, is really the piece most people miss when they're searching for one single fix that solves everything by itself. If this was useful, hitting subscribe is the easiest way to support the channel, since there's a lot more coming on simple food choices that support staying strong and mobile as the years go by. There's also something genuinely worth knowing. Can you currently stand up from a low chair without pushing off with your hands at all? Just drop a yes or a no in the comments, no explanation needed, since it would be genuinely interesting to see how common this actually is among everyone watching this right now. Comments like these genuinely help shape what gets covered next. So even a quick one-word reply makes a real difference. If you found this helpful, a quick like helps it reach other people who might need to hear it too, maybe even someone in your own family. And if you're already wondering about the movement side of everything covered here, that's exactly what the next video walks through: one simple, 2-minute leg exercise anyone can do at home, daily, with no equipment required at all. So, to bring it all together, brown lentils won't transform anyone's legs overnight, and honestly, nothing on a plate ever really does, no matter what some headlines might promise. But as one small, consistent part of daily meals, alongside a bit of simple, regular movement, they may genuinely help support the strength relied on every single day, from getting out of bed to keeping up on a walk. Getting older doesn't have to mean quietly accepting weaker legs as something inevitable, something to just live with. Sometimes the support needed most is sitting quietly in the pantry already overlooked, just waiting to be used a little more often. Small, steady choices tend to add up in ways that are easy to underestimate in the moment. That's really the whole idea behind eating this way. Take care of your legs now, because they're the ones that carry you through everything else, every single day.